All right, everybody. The season is almost here. We're a couple of days away, and it's time to put your money where your mouth is. It's time to take a stance and make your bets for the 2025 season. Because, who doesn't love to victory lap a bet that they made on a team that they thought was going to break out? Because I sure do. Think about it. If you bet on the Buccaneers, Broncos, or Commanders last year to be a top 10 offense after being at the bottom of the league the year before, then you are probably a very happy camper and won lots of money in fantasy football. So this year, I'm here to give you 5 offenses that you are not high enough on this upcoming season and the players you should be grabbing every chance you can in your fantasy leagues. However, I am not taking the easy route. We all expect the 49ers to bounce back with a healthy McCaffrey and company, or the Cowboys to return to a top 12 unit with Dak back healthy and the addition of George Pickens. I won't even be talking about the Dolphins, who are some of the easiest bounce back candidates with Tua hopefully playing a full season and Tyreek and Waddle back to full strength. No. We are digging deep. These teams were some of the worst units in all of football last year and ranked bottom 10 almost everywhere you look. However, with a couple of offseason additions, hits in the NFL draft, and big coaching changes, these teams could easily be the Commanders, Broncos, or Buccaneers of last year. So let's get this thing started. Okay, so this offense is probably my most anticipated watch for the season, and I am really eager to see how it unfolds. I've talked a lot about the players already throughout the offseason, and I'm particularly high on a few guys on this team. So with that being said, we are not going to waste any more time, and we're going to dive right into the Jacksonville Jaguars. And to put it nicely, like all the teams on this list, this team was not good in 2024. They ranked 25th, 26th in the NFL in terms of yards per game, points per game, possessed a mediocre offensive line, and were decimated all around by injuries with Trevor Lawrence, Etienne, Christian Kirk, and Ingram missing most of the season. The only bright spot that they had was they had one of the best young rookie wide receivers we have seen in a very long time, who showed, even with Mac Jones, that he is already elite and one of the top wide receivers in the NFL. Fast forward to the 2025 offseason, and this Jags team looks completely different. Christian Kirk was traded, Evan Ingram was released, and the entire coaching staff plus GM were completely wiped clean. A whole new regime was hired and headlined by the coach who was responsible for one of last year's surprise offenses, Buccaneers offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. The Jaguars didn't stop there, as they traded up to the number 2 pick in the NFL draft, putting all their chips on the table as they parted with their 2026 first-round pick and traded up to the number 2 overall pick, selecting Travis Hunter, the 2024 Heisman and Biletnikoff winner. I know some people are going to shout from the mountaintops that one player, especially a wide receiver / corner, isn't going to fix all the work that the Jags had last year. However, I think other than the quarterback positions, coaching and scheme is the most important aspect to an offense and the success of it. And Liam Cohen brings exactly that to the table. He led the Buccaneers to a top 5 offense last season in terms of yards per game, points per game, EPA per play, which measures how efficient a team is in terms of scoring on a per play basis, and pretty much every other statistic you look at. He achieved this with some great weapons at his disposal. The likes of Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and star rookie Bucky Irving certainly helps. However, the quarterback he had at the helm draws a lot of similarities to the one he is now coaching in Jacksonville. Baker Mayfield, like Trevor Lawrence, were both number 1 overall picks at one point in time and had not exactly lived up to the hype and expectation early on in their careers. Mayfield did a great job of changing that narrative last year under Liam Cohen, posting career highs everywhere you look. He threw for 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns, and was quietly good on the ground with almost another 400 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns, which was good for 21.5 fantasy points per game and the quarterback 4 overall. Whether you are a Trevor Lawrence believer or not, you can't debate the fact that he has all the talent in the world and is more than capable of putting up the numbers that Mayfield did in Cohen's offense last season. Unlocking Lawrence, though, has the ceiling of a top 4 to 7 quarterback at the position. The Jaguars may not have future Hall of Famer Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, but the weapons they have are no joke. Like I mentioned earlier, Brian Thomas Jr. is already one of the better wide receivers in the NFL, and he was just a rookie last season. Travis Hunter is also a once-in-a-lifetime talent as a football player. Sure, you will hear people say that he is going to play mainly defense, or he's a better corner than he is a receiver. The reality is, though, those things just aren't true. Just look at Matt Harmon's write-up on Hunter, and it will absolutely get your attention. He is rare. Plain and simple, he has the infamous all-green chart according to reception perception, and 92nd percentile or above against man, zone, and press. Pretty darn impressive. Matt Harmon even compared him to Odell Beckham Jr., and I will leave it at that. If that doesn't get you excited, just take a look at the damage Mike Evans and Chris Godwin did in this exact same system last year. They both finished as top 12 wide receivers in points per game. Godwin led the way with almost 20 points per contest as the wide receiver 2, and Evans followed close behind with just above 17 a game. Now plug BTJ and Hunter into these two roles. BTJ will likely play that Mike Evans, bigger body guy that will play on the outside, and Hunter taking a lot of the slot usage that Godwin dominated last season. Thomas was already a top 12 guy at the position last year in year one. He's one of the few players who can finish as the wide receiver one in fantasy and have a Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb type legendary season and can be a true difference maker. The case for Hunter also to smash in fantasy this year is really, really easy. He gets the Godwin role, is a young and more talented player and has game-breaking ability that contains an unlimited ceiling. I won't blab anymore about Travis Hunter. All I will say is if you decide to fade him, you will be kicking yourself when he is dominating in this Liam Cohen offense and scoring a lot of fantasy points in 2025. The Jaguars have also been very clear about his role in the preseason. He is a mainly offensive player that is going to moonlight on defense. Let's talk about what Cohen has in store for whoever leads the way in this backfield. It is a little murky at the moment, but if we look a little closer, the runway is more clear for some than others. As we all know, Travis Etienne has been the main back the last 2 to 3 years in Jacksonville. He was joined last year by Tank Bigsby to insert 4th-round pick Bashal Tutin, and now we have a real ambiguous backfield on our hands. If you have watched my past videos before, you know I have a clear favorite to emerge as the number one back in this offense. It's easily Tutin due to the offseason buzz he has gotten and the fact that the GM and brass targeted him specifically, and also, I just don't think the other two are that great. Etienne and Bigsby were selected by the old regime and have no attachment to either. There have been multiple reports of trade rumors and not a clear indication of who's going to take the majority of the snaps. I'm going ahead and placing my bet on the guy who the new regime just selected and who possesses the traits to be truly electric in the Jaguars offense. Newton ran a 4.32 at the combine, jumped a 40.5-inch vertical, and a 10.10 in the broad. Just go turn on his highlights from college. He can absolutely burn, man. Now, while I favor Tutin, Cohen has clearly shown that two backs can be productive in this offense. Bucky Irving and Rachaad White almost exclusively split snaps 50-50 last year and were both top 24 finishers at the position. Considering Etienne and Tutin have overlapping skill sets, I think Bigsby is the easier play to imagine having value on this team. The reason I prefer the player in the Etienne/Tutin role is because they will likely see all of the receiving work and are more home run hitters who can break off huge chunk plays. Bigsby is just more of a between the tackles guy that could vulture some touchdowns at the goal line, and that's totally fine. His strength is just not on 3rd down, as he only caught 8 passes in his first 2 seasons. I know there are some Etienne believers still out there, but things don't seem to be heading in the right direction for him. I think the best case scenario is he gets to move to a team where his runway is more clear and where he can really revive his career. So to get back to the point, I want both Tutin and to a lesser extent Tank Bigsby this year. This backfield is going to be a gold mine, and the cool thing is they are going to be incredibly undervalued. And to quickly touch on the tight end position, I think Brenton Strange is a relatively quiet option as a cheap later round tight end in drafts. He was a 2nd round pick just a couple of years ago, and with Evan Ingram now gone, the runway is completely clear. Cade Otton was quite good at points last season, and I think Strange could easily match or clear those numbers from 2024. I want all the Jaguars I can possibly get for this upcoming season in fantasy football. I think for the first time ever, coaching, scheme, and talent all coming together in Jacksonville. This recipe could possibly create a surprise top 5 to 10 offense, and I believe has a floor of a top 15 team at the least, which is still a profit compared to how these players are valued. Big improvement from last season. If this next offense falls on its face this season, I don't think there's going to be anyone who's going to be more hurt than me. If you didn't already know, the Bears were a complete and utter disaster last season. The offensive line was awful. Their 2 top 10 picks, Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, both underwhelmed. DJ Moore had a pretty putrid year after a career season just the year before. And overall, it's just a hard watch. There is now hope, though. We no longer have to watch Shane Waldron call plays in this offense that ranked 28th in points per game and dead last in total yards per game. Enter the man responsible for possibly the best offense in the NFL in the last 2 seasons. Ben Johnson is hopefully going to make all of our dreams come true. I know it's quite easy to make fun of the Bears for being the Bears. They kind of ruined the Justin Fields experiment. Sure, Fields had its flaws, but as we saw last season, it is incredibly hard to succeed when you are sacked 68 times like Caleb Williams was and are constantly running for your life. One thing that we can all point out that feels different about this Bears regime is the fact that Ben Johnson and GM Ryan Poles did go out and spend a significant amount of money on this offensive line and trade for all-pro left tackle to ensure that Caleb can operate without having his head taken off every other play. They doubled down on offense and took tight end Colson Loveland with the 10th overall pick and wide receiver Luther Burden with the 37th overall pick. Envisioning these players and roles that Johnson had in his time with the Lions is so much fun. We all know about Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams broke out in a big way last season, operating as the team's number 2 wideout. and Sam Laporta finished as the tight end one in his rookie season just 2 seasons ago. We all know how incredible the duo of Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery were. Jahmyr Gibbs finished as the RB2 with 21 points per game, and Montgomery was a almost 16 point per game scorer at 50.8 and accumulated 25 touchdowns in his 2 seasons under Ben Johnson. We can't forget about Jared Goff either. Goff was just the QB7 last season, tossed 37 touchdowns. How about that for some all-around fantasy production, huh? I mean, the Lions were electric the last 2 seasons, and Ben Johnson was the man behind it. Ben Johnson chose the Bears as his destination for a reason. Caleb Williams is one of the best quarterback prospects we have ever seen. The unanimous #1 overall pick has Patrick Mahomes type arm talent, mobility, and potential to become a top 3 QB in the league if things go the way we think they will. Look, I think Jared Goff is awesome. He has really resurrected his career after being traded to the Lions, but he has nowhere near the potential that Caleb has. I envision Caleb finishing with top 10 fantasy numbers in points per game at the position this upcoming season, and he has an even bigger ceiling if everything clicks. He quietly ran for 500 yards on the ground last season, and we all know what that Konami code type player can do in fantasy football, as we've seen with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. I don't think that he has that type of upside, but if he can run for 500 yards, sneak in a couple of touchdowns, his ceiling can get even higher than we even imagine. Going away from the quarterback position, I think everybody's biggest question is how will this receiver room shape up? At the moment, it is pretty crowded. We know they have veteran DJ Moore. They had top 10 selection last year, Rome Odunze, and the newest member, Luther Burden. I'm going to come out and say it. Maybe it is an unpopular opinion, but I think DJ Moore is going to be the one left out by the end of the year. He was not good last season. And on top of that, his new head coach has been pretty outspoken with the things he is not going to put up with and has quietly called him out numerous times this offseason. He just doesn't seem to be in their long-term plans, unfortunately. This was echoed when they took Luther Burden in this early second round, who is basically a DJ Moore type clone. Burden is a high-usage slot player who is electric out in space and dangerous in all the same ways that DJ Moore is. His coach also, unlike with Moore, cannot stop talking about how much he loves him. I think by the end of the season, Burden will have eaten into Moore's usage and become the team's starting slot wide receiver. And if we can all remember, do you want to know who the slot guy was with Ben Johnson's offense in Detroit? Oh yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown. Let's let that one marinate for a second because Luther Burden has that type of upside. Now let's turn to one of my favorite players in the league, Rome Odunze. Like Burden, the noise and the hype for him this offseason has been nonstop. Despite having a pretty ugly rookie year, Odunze is a my guy, and on top of it was an incredible prospect coming out of the University of Washington just a season ago. He was taken inside the top 10 for a reason, and I truly believe that despite his underlying metrics in yards per out run, first downs per out run, and targets per out run not being anywhere we wanted them to be in year one, I think his potential is sky high. Let me just give you some reasons to be bullish. Check out the tweet by Rich Rebar, who is one of the best analysts in the game. Odunze ran 144 routes where there wasn't even a target on the field. It was either a throwaway, a batted ball, or a Caleb Williams sack. According to Matt Harmon, Odunze's success rates against press and man were all very, very good and where we want them to be in year one. He did struggle a bit against zone, but the scheme and poor timing with his quarterback can be attributed to that. And if you aren't sold enough, let me sell you here. We all know that Shane Waldron is no stranger to ruining a high pedigree wide receiver prospect coming into his rookie season. He literally did it just 2 years ago with Jackson Smith-Njigba. What did JSN do in his first year without him? Well, he finished as the wide receiver 9 in total points and averaged 15 points per game. Odunze is my pick to lead this team in catches, receiving yards, and touchdowns, and most importantly, fantasy points. I think a big year 2 breakout is on the way for Rome. I want to quickly touch on the tight end and running back positions that are almost certainly bound to be important fantasy assets if the Bears' offense is to be successful in 2025. Colston Loveland, who we talked about earlier, was the Bears' first-round pick this past season. Loveland is a phenomenal prospect, and there was a reason he was taken inside the top 10 at a position that the NFL usually doesn't regard as top 10 worthy. You have to be pretty special, and Colston Loveland sure is. Similar to guys like Trey McBride and Brock Bowers, he can run a real route tree and line up in the slot like a receiver. We want to see this versatility and usage from our fantasy tight ends because you do not get points for blocking. He is also a freak athletically and possesses incredible size, standing at 6'6", 250 pounds, and even for a tight end, that is some rare size. He now gets the Sam Laporta role, and I don't even have to remind you what he did in his rookie season. He only finished as the tight end 1 overall, averaged 14 points per game, and scored double-digit touchdowns. Insert Loveland, and you have yourself a dark horse to be the tight end 1 for 2025. We'll briefly talk about DeAndre Swift, who looks to be handling the Bears' backfield. I know we talked about him in a past video, but he has little to no competition behind him. We all know what Swift can do in the passing game. Mix that with the 110 targets and 101 catches that were accumulated between Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery last season. and we are cooking with gas. Ben Johnson is very familiar with Swift, as they were both together when he was in Detroit. I truly believe that Swift can be back in RB1 or at least a high end RB2 in 2025. If you are betting against the Bears, I think it is incredibly unwise. I'm taking a massive stance. They will make a complete 180 and be a top 10 overall offense this season. And when that happens, you're going to want to own all the pieces in this offense that you possibly can. I am a believer in Ben Johnson and what he can do. Fade the Bears at your own risk. You will certainly regret missing out. Is there a team that looks more different heading into the year than the Las Vegas Raiders? Because I really don't think so. What the Raiders have done this offseason is tell their fans and the rest of the league that they are ready to compete and win right now. Their fresh start was kicked off by the firings of the head coach and the general manager. They then agreed to terms with Pete Carroll to come out of retirement and take over head coaching duties, and hired the Ohio State offensive coordinator Chip Kelly to take over the play calling duties on offense. Shortly after that, the Raiders traded a third-round pick to bring over Geno Smith as the new starting quarterback, and they didn't stop there. With the 6th overall pick in the NFL draft, they selected one of the best running back prospects we have ever seen coming out of college, Boise State's Ashton Jeanty. In the second round, they also selected Jack Bech, an underrated wide receiver prospect out of TCU. Las Vegas has quickly made themselves into one of the most exciting offenses to watch this season after being almost unwatchable all of last year. We all know the name Brock Bowers. He is easily the young best tight end in the NFL, and now gets to catch passes from one of the most accurate and underrated quarterbacks in the league in Geno Smith. No more Aiden O'Connell and Desmond Ridder. He racked up 112 catches on 153 targets last season, which led the position and broke the rookie receptions record as a tight end that was previously held by Puka Nacua. The dude is different, and he is in a class of his own at the ripe age of 22. Upgraded QB can help the only place he was weak at in 2024, which was getting in the end zone. Predicting positive regression with Geno at the helm is a smart bet to make. Bowers is the easy choice to finish as the tight end 1 for this upcoming year. An improvement in the rushing aspect of the game can elevate his ceiling even higher in this offense. To highlight just how bad the Vegas running game was last year, all you have to do is look at where they were ranked in the advanced metrics. I'll give you a hint, they were dead last in literally every single one of them. They averaged less than 80 yards per game on the ground, 3.6 yards per carry. This was absolutely abysmal, especially considering the offensive line wasn't terrible. They were about league average and not bottom of the barrel like most people would think. Looking at this rushing attack, a lot of this could probably be attributed to a combination of Zamir White, Alexander Madison, Amir Abdullah, and Sincere McCormick getting 300 of the 380 carries on this team last year. Those dark times are now over. The runner-up for the Heisman and the guy who nearly broke Barry Sanders' rushing record will now be the bell cow of this offense. One of the best running back prospects ever, Ashton Jeanty is equivalent to guys like Bijan Robinson and Saquon Barkley coming out of college. Jeanty will make lives easier for everyone in this offense and open up the field for Brock Bowers to eat in the open field and after the catch. The Raiders may not have DK Metcalf or JSN like Geno had in Seattle, but Jacoby Myers is a darn solid good fantasy option. With the bad quarterback play that he had last year, he had 87 catches on 129 targets, cleared the 1,000-yard mark, and averaged 14.5 fantasy points per game, which was good for a top 24 finish. Myers was a low-end wide receiver too, and although there was some nice talent opposite of him added this offseason, such as prospect Jack Bech that I really liked in the second round, and a Camp Darling and Dante Thornton, I don't see anyone other than Bowers pushing him too much for targets. Myers will easily get to the 130-plus target mark and be a solid top 24 option all year long for fantasy managers. However, recently there was a report that came out that stated Myers wanted a trade. Now, if this were to happen, this opens the door for a guy like Jack Bech to step right into his role and have some nice opportunity to take over as the lead wideout on this team. Bech is more of a sleeper this upcoming season and could emerge if Myers were to be dealt, but until then, I'm pretty much betting on Jacoby Myers staying in Las Vegas, getting a contract done, being his holdout in training camp, and being a good option in fantasy all around. The Raiders are a super dark horse candidate for me to finish as a top 10 offense. I mean, drafting two of the best prospects we have ever seen at the running back and tight end position gives this Raiders a ceiling that fans have never seen before. Also, Geno Smith is no stranger to surprise offenses. He did it in 2022 with Seattle, where he was a top 10 player at the quarterback position. He averaged 18 fantasy points per game, which was good for the quarterback 9 that year, and vaulted the Seahawks to a top 10 unit in points per game overall. Guess who the head coach was for that Seattle team? You guessed it, the current Las Vegas head coach right now, Pete Carroll. Don't be shocked if Carroll and Geno run it back. Do not miss out on Ashton Jeanty and Brock Bowers, as they have ceilings very few possess, are going in the first round of redraft, and could be the number one player at their position in fantasy football this season. If you're looking for steady later round options, Jacoby Myers and Geno Smith are perfect players I am turning to, and ones that your league mates will be looking past all over the place. I am buying into this new look Raiders team, and so should you. Okay, hear me out. The next two offenses that we're going to talk about are more dark horse candidates to finish as a top 15 unit than maybe a top 10 unit. They need a lot more to swing their way than the previous three that I talked about in this video, but have a lot of potential if things were to come together. So let's begin with the New England Patriots. Mike Vrabel was hired this offseason to be the head coach, and then he brought in offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels to call plays. The Patriots made sure to address their biggest weakness, the offensive line. Last season, they ranked 31st and 32nd in the league in pass blocking and run blocking win rate, and made sure to address this again by drafting Will Campbell with the 4th overall pick. They also added veterans Morgan Moses and Garrett Bradbury to help solidify this unit. They brought in Stephon Diggs in free agency, signing him to a 3-year, $63.5 million deal, drafted Ohio State running back Travion Henderson in the 2nd round, and underrated prospect Kyle Williams in the 3rd. The situation reminds me a lot of the 2023 Texans. And if you can remember, that Texans team had just drafted CJ Stroud, and the weapons around him were kind of relatively unknown. Nico wasn't a staple like he is now, and Tank Dell was a rookie we were unsure of as a 3rd-round pick that year. The Houston offensive line was a question mark as well, like it is in New England. And as we all know, Stroud had a great rookie year. He was the top 9 finisher in points per game with 18.4 and led the league in passing yards per game. Why I think the Stroud and May comparison is valid is because May easily has an 18-plus point per game ceiling in his game. He possesses something that Stroud really doesn't, which significantly raises his floor and ceiling. He makes a lot of plays with his legs and has huge rushing upside. Looking back to just last year in his rookie season, May was quite good. He was a 16-point per game scorer when he played a full game and rushed for over 400 yards in the 11 starts he made in 2024. With the changes on the coaching staff, the offensive line improvements, and the weapons that the Patriots have added on offense, I am predicting that May has an 18-point per game floor and a ceiling of 20-plus points per game if this Patriots offense were to hit its absolute ceiling. He finishes as at least a top 12 option as a quarterback 1, and by this time next year is a top 7 quarterback drafted in fantasy football. The mix of talent and upside with May makes him so tantalizing, and after what I saw in his rookie season, I am completely all in. I want to point out some other parallels to the 2023 Texans. But like Nico Collins was, Stephon Diggs looks to be the number 1 option for this team in 2025. We all know about how great Diggs has been throughout his entire career in fantasy, going back to his time with Buffalo, Minnesota, and even Houston last season. He has always been a great option anywhere he has been, but there are definitely some holes to poke considering he is now 31 years old and coming off a torn ACL that he suffered last year with the Texans. Why I'm more bullish on Diggs than most is because if we took a look at his reception perception data and what Matt Harmon had to say after charting him, his results were much better than I even imagined. He played a majority of the snaps in the slot and excelled there due to his great route running ability and the fantastic technician that he is. These types of receivers tend to play way longer into their careers. They understand timing, leverage, and where to be when a quarterback needs them. This fits exactly what Drake May needs, and I think he will heavily rely on him this upcoming season. Diggs has an average less than 50 points per game in the last 5 seasons, and I don't think 25 will be any different. The other Patriots receiving options I think will have some surprising seasons are Kyle Williams and tight end Hunter Henry. Kyle Williams reminds me a lot of Tank Dell coming out of college. Both were underrated, went in a lot of the same ways as good route runners, and were funnily enough both taken with the 69th overall pick in the 3rd round. I've talked a lot about Williams this offseason, so I will keep this short. Williams is my pick to be the surprise rookie at the receiver position. He isn't being talked about enough, and there's a clear runway for opportunity more than anything. Other than Diggs, there's no clear number 2, and I predict that Williams would take over this role very quickly and put up some really nice fantasy numbers. When it comes to Hunter Henry, I also think he is a really good option this year, especially in PPR leagues. He quietly almost caught 70 passes in 2024 and accumulated just below 100 targets and 700 yards. And Henry is someone you can keep your eye on and can easily return top 12 value at his position with the jumps the Patriots offense will make this season. Lastly, I will talk about Travion Henderson. This guy has been a rocket ship this offseason. People were already excited about him coming out of Ohio State. His pass catching ability, explosive playmaking, and game-breaking speed make him one of the most exciting running backs in fantasy. He has jumped into the top 3 to 4 rounds in redraft, and I am no different than anyone else. Envisioning a 60 to 70 catch floor for him right away is something that I think is actually very reasonable. The guy is just a stud. Although he may split touches with his backfield mate Ramondre Stevenson early on, I really don't think this will last. Henderson has flashed things at training camp and in the preseason, like taking his first ever touch 100 yards to the house on a kickoff return that will force the Patriots to get him the ball any way they can. Mark my words, Henderson will be a name in everyone's lineup come the stretch of the season and in the fantasy playoffs. He will absolutely win you leagues in 2025, and you need to own him anywhere you can get him. This Patriots team is going to surprise everybody this year. I mean, all the signs are there. Vrabel has won everywhere he's been. Drake May is going into year 2. This offense has made an enormous amount of upgrades, and the Patriots are sneakily an 8.5 win over-under team for 2025. If that doesn't sell you enough on some optimism for this team, then you are just being too stubborn. Bet on the Patriots and the pieces in this offense. It is such a low-risk, high-reward bet for you. Now, this last call is going to be a long shot. A shot in the dark horse of all dark horses, one of the last teams that anyone would expect to be even league average on offense. However, I think this team has some pillars, some pieces, that I think can make this offense do a top 15 unit if things fall into place and come together cohesively. All falls on the shoulders of one player, though, and it's a lot to ask for a rookie. And if you haven't guessed it already, I am talking about the New York Giants, and the rookie I'm referring to is none other than Jackson Dart. I want you to hear me out, because I think they have a stronger case than a lot of people may think. My argument for the Giants, of course, begins with Jackson Dart, but it also involves the coach behind the curtain. Brian Daboll, if you didn't know, Daboll took the job with the Giants just a couple of years ago, and he was the coach who people credit for developing Josh Allen. Knowing what we know about last year's MVP, it is hard to imagine that at one point in time, he was an incredibly raw prospect coming out of Wyoming. There was a lot of criticism when the Bills took him 7th overall, and understandably so. He was a bet on tools and potential. He had a big arm. He was incredibly mobile and can make throws that only the likes of guys like Mahomes, Herbert, Lamar, and Burrow can make. It was a high-risk bet that could have gone either way. Luckily for the Bills, he developed into one of the top 2 players on the planet. Teams have tried betting on this archetype recently, and it hasn't gone very well. Just ask the Colts and the Bears how the Anthony Richardson and Justin Fields experiments went. The reason I bring all this up is because the Giants made a similar bet in the 2025 NFL Draft, selecting quarterback Jackson Dart with the 25th overall pick. There are a lot of questions with Dart coming out, and if he was even worthy as a first-round pick. He had a lot of inconsistencies in college and wasn't exactly polished. If there was someone who could develop Dart, though, I believe there are few better options than Brian Daboll himself. If you don't want to give him any credit for how amazing Josh Allen has developed, then just take a look at what he did in his first year in 2022 as the Giants head coach with none other than quarterback Daniel Jones at the helm. The Giants finished 9-7 that year, made the playoffs, won a playoff game when they eliminated the Vikings, and most importantly, Jones had his most productive fantasy season ever. He was actually phenomenal. He finished as a quarterback 8 with 18.1 points per game and did all of it with Darius Slayton, Richie James leading the team in receiving yards. Neither of those guys even eclipsed the 800-yard mark, so how did he do it? Well, Jones rushed for 700 yards and found the end zone 7 more times. If I had to make a bet, I would absolutely say that Dart is far more talented than Daniel Jones, and that is being very nice about it. The cool thing about Dart, though, is he has a weapon that Jones has never seen anything close to in his time with New York. Malik Neighbors is easily the best young receiver in the league and had one of the best rookie seasons we have ever seen. I mean, this guy had 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns, caught 109 passes, earned 170 targets, and he did all this while missing 2 games and finished just behind Jamar Chase in targets, which is absolutely insane. Finishing second in the league in targets and being one of the best receivers in the NFL is not an easy feat, but we all know how good Neighbors is. We all love that Dart has Neighbors as his best weapon, but there's another thing that can elevate this Giants offense to another level. Dart has the rushing ability to be a true difference maker if he hits the 100th percentile outcome that we are hoping from him. He rushed for 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns in his 3 years at Ole Miss. This number is also suppressed as quarterbacks lose rushing yards when they are sacked in college, so this number is actually probably much higher. What I'm really trying to stress is that Jackson Dart is a guy that most people are really overlooking. Most are distracted by the fact that Russell Wilson is going to open the season as the starter most likely. With Wilson's recent trajectory, I don't think it'll take long before we see Dart making his first start. We have already seen some flashes this preseason, and there are some that believe that he is even ready to be the starter week 1. I am making the bet that he will start the majority of the season and outperform expectations by a wide margin. He will elevate the likes of Malik Neighbors and the other pieces in the offense that are being overlooked, most notably the two running backs, Tyron Tracy and Cam Scatterbo. We saw Tracy have a really nice rookie season in the worst situation possible, and Scatterbo was a very good prospect coming out of Arizona State. The team is on its last legs, and I truly believe Dart is going to save their jobs with what he's going to show this upcoming season. Now, laugh all you want. We all know the Giants haven't been exactly the model of success of the past couple of seasons, but like we talked about, hitting on the quarterback position can change everything. Daboll has done it before, and I predict that he will do it again by developing Jackson Dart. The Giants are my dark horse to take the entire NFL by surprise and may have some of the sneakiest fantasy assets down the stretch of the season as Dart eases himself into this offense. We all know Malik Neighbors is going to be a staple in every owner's fantasy lineup who drafted him, but don't be shocked if Dart is winning people championships down the stretch. The 3 teams they face in the fantasy playoffs are the Commanders, Vikings, and Raiders. At least 2 or maybe even all 3 games could easily be shootouts in the right environment. Neighbors could feast, and we all know that Dart has the traits that we love in fantasy quarterbacks. Rushing upside, rushing upside, rushing upside. Look out for the Giants this year. They could easily surprise some folks and come out of nowhere. Daboll has done it before with Daniel Jones, so knowing that, anything is possible.